Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Swadesi, Bhaktivinoda Samsara Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namachar Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Paramsakahal Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, Gopal Gopika, Shyamukunda Radha Kudai, Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Go Premanandi. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga, all glories to Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vishnupadaya Krishna Vasudevaya Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Pastachadesha Tadane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 24, verse 32. Tatacha vyadadhu sarvam yataha madhusudanaha vachayet vasvaschayanam tadravyena giridvijan. Das, Cha, and Avyadadu, they executed Sarvam, everything, Yata, as Aha, he spoke, Madhusudana, Lord Krishna, Vachayatva, making the Brahmanas recite, Swaschayanam, auspicious chants, Tadravyena, with the paraphernalia intended for Indra's sacrifice. Giri to the hill, Dvijan, and the Brahmanas. Translation: the cowherd community then did all that Madhusudan had suggested. They arranged for the Brahmanas to recite the auspicious Vedic mantras, and using the paraphernalia that had been intended for Indra's sacrifice, they presented offerings to Govardhan hill, and the Brahmanas, with reverential respect, they also gave grass to the cows. Then, placing the cows, bulls, and calves in front of them, they circumambulated Govardhan. Purport: the residents of Vrindavan were simply devoted to Lord Krishna. That was the sum and substance of their existence. Being the Lord's eternal associates, they were ultimately not concerned with Lord Indra or ritualistic sacrifice, and they were certainly not interested in the mechanistic philosophy that Krishna had just spoken to them. They simply loved Krishna, and out of intense affection they did exactly what he had requested. Their simple loving mentality was not small-mindedness or ignorance, since they were devoted to the supreme absolute truth, who contains within himself all existence. And thus, the residents of Vrindavan constantly experienced the highest essential truth underlying all other truths, and that is Sri Krishna himself, the cause of all causes, and that which sustains the existence of all that exists. The residents of Vrindavan were overwhelmed in loving service to that supreme absolute truth. Therefore, they were the most fortunate, most intelligent, most pragmatic of all living beings. So this is the appearance, or we can say the day in which the Govardhan Leela is celebrated. And there's several chapters in Bhagavatam devoted to this pastime, which consists of several parts. One, of course, is Krishna's convincing the people of Vrindavan to give up the sacrifice for Indra. So that's the first part. Then this is the second part, where the people do as Krishna instructs, and they offer food to the hill and to the Brahmanas, and they circumambulate the hill and worship the cows, etc. And then the third part is the anger of Indra, and he pours rain on Vraja, and then Krishna lifts up the hill, and he protects everyone for 7 days and nights. And then finally, Indra is defeated. And then the conclusion is that after Indra is defeated, he comes and offers prayers to Krishna along with Surabhi. So we have several parts of this particular pastime. So the intention of this pastime ultimately is to one, illustrate certain things. That is, that rather than worship devatas, one should worship the Supreme Lord, and therefore the worship of Indra was given up on the instruction of Krishna. But then the people don't worship Krishna, they worship the hill instead. So we have another element here, and that is that the hill itself is also non-different from Krishna. Of course, the whole Dham is non-different from Krishna. And particularly in this pastime, we see how Krishna assumes a form on top of Govardhan, and he takes all the offerings. So though Govardhan is the servant of Krishna, he also is non-different from Krishna in this particular pastime, where Krishna accepts the offerings of the people of Vrindavan. So in other words, the place of the Lord, and particularly Govardhan, is non-different from the Lord, and therefore worthy of worship. And then the other remarkable feature is that Krishna was eager to protect all the people of Vrindavan. Now, previously, Krishna had protected them in various ways, and that was by killing different demons who afflicted different persons, like the cowherd boys and people in general. But not so obviously as this act itself, where Krishna protects everybody, and everybody simultaneously experiences the power of Krishna. When he held up the mountain for 7 days and nights. And at that time, everybody saw the remarkable nature of Krishna. So here's a particular display of Krishna's power that was not seen previously, because everybody, and all the people in different rasas simultaneously perceived this for 7 days. So it's an outstanding pastime for that reason. And another outstanding feature is that when he was lifting up the hill, then all the different people in all different rasas perceived Krishna according to their particular vision. So the elders saw Krishna as their child, and the friends saw Krishna as their friend, and the gopis saw Krishna as their lover. So simultaneously, Krishna responded to all of these individuals, and they saw Krishna in a particular way, which was very satisfying. Just as when Krishna went to the arena of Kamsa, then various people saw Krishna in different ways. He satisfied everybody, even though it was only one Krishna. He was able to fulfill those with Madhurya Rasa, Sakya Rasa, Matsaya Rasa, Dasya Rasa, and Shanta Rasa, and even the secondary rasas. Simultaneously, everybody had an experience of Krishna. So in other words, this pastime illustrates that Krishna is the sum of all rasas. And anyone who wants to experience a particular relationship with the Lord can find that within Krishna. And that can be done simultaneously, as he did here when he lifted up the Govardhan hill and everybody saw him differently. So this is a remarkable feature of Krishna, but very natural to him. And ultimately, we see Indra was defeated. So from this particular incident, we see that Indra, though he is the king of the Devatas, he actually had no power when it's compared to the power of Krishna. So after 7 days, all of his clouds got exhausted, and they had no more rain left to pour. So in other words, Indra had material power, which is exhaustible. And Krishna has spiritual power, which is inexhaustible. So he didn't have to stand there for 7 days. He could stand there for years on end without any problem. And he would never be tired or fatigued or whatever. So the Devatas have material powers, but those are nothing in comparison to the power of the Supreme Lord. However, in relation to Krishna, the powers manifest in a little bit different way. Normally we see that different avatars come and they fight with demons, or Varaha lifts the earth out of the Govardhan ocean, whatever. So they show powers in particular avatar forms, some of which are animal forms. Here we have a Supreme Lord as a small boy who's only 7 years old or whatever, and he is lifting up this hill. So he does not the form of Varaha or anyone, but he lifts up this hill for 7 days. So in other words, the unique feature of Krishna is he has the form of a small boy, and he doesn't look powerful because he's only a small boy, but he has powers of all of the different forms of the Lord, including Varaha and Vamana and Nrsimhadev, etc., within him. Elsewhere it's described that when Krishna appears, all of the different avatars who have their own planets within the material world, like Rama and Varaha and Matsya and Kurma, they merge into Krishna, since he is the sum total of all avatars plus more. When he manifests his form and is born as the son of Yasoda and Nanda and Vasudeva and Devaki, then all these forms merge into Krishna, and they are present there. So all of their powers are present within Krishna. So whatever Varaha can do, like lifting up the earth, or whatever Vamana can do, like expanding himself beyond the universe, Krishna can very easily do this because he has all those powers as well. So everything is within Krishna. All the powers of all the different forms are there. So very easily he can accomplish anything. And still, he maintains this particular form of a small cowherd boy. So this is what makes Krishna most astonishing. He does not appear to have more powers than anyone else. He seems to have less powers because he has the form of a small boy. And yet, he can do more than any of the other forms of the Lord. So this, of course, was also the case of Brahma. He became astonished when he saw that Krishna was much greater than he was. So here also, Indra thinks, oh, Krishna is just a small boy, and he's telling all the cowherd people to stop sacrifice. So what can he do? So he just looks like a small child. And what did he say to convince the people? He gave all sorts of false arguments from Karma Mimamsa. You don't have to worship anybody. Just do your duties, and automatically all of the results come. So we don't have to worship anyone, actually. This is actually a rather atheistic philosophy, the Karma Mimamsa philosophy. And he gave these arguments, and then the people simply obeyed Krishna. Krishna doesn't look like he is such a superior person, and therefore Indra also got fooled. All the cowherd people are foolish because they're listening to the foolish arguments of a small boy, and then they stop sacrifice. So therefore he thought, okay, I will teach Krishna and the people of Vrindavan a lesson. So it is very difficult for many people to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord because he doesn't appear to have all the powers of the Lord. So that is the common conception of people. The Lord must be all-powerful and display all of his powers. Then we're convinced that he exists. But there's a higher test of who is God. And that is that form or that person who can respond to everyone in the most remarkable ways and give them bliss through a loving relationship, and who can satisfy everybody by his love in the most intense way. Of course, all forms of the Lord can do this to some extent, but the other forms are somewhat limited because the prominent feature is Dasya Rasa. And everyone has to acknowledge the power of the Lord and be his servant. And so some people prefer that. Many people, that's their conception, and they are attracted to that, and therefore the Lord responds to that. Rarer than that are persons who desire a more intimate relationship with the Lord as mother and father, etc., a friend. So those are the persons that approach Krishna. And that's their qualification, that they appreciate and they strive for a more intimate relationship with the Lord. And they can only do that if the Lord himself takes a very intimate form where power is not obvious, because realization that the power of the Lord will obstruct the intimacy of the relationship. So for that reason, Krishna in Vrindavan has this very small, childlike form. And everyone believes, he is simply a small child. And this allows their relationship to become very intense in Vatsalya or Sakya or Dasya or Madhurya Rasa. Much more intense relationship is there than with other forms of the Lord because of the particular form of Krishna. So persons who can realize the sweetness aspect of the Lord, they're ultimately superior to those who appreciate the greatness aspect of the Lord, the Aishvarya aspect. So here we see how Krishna manifested his sweet relationship by protecting all the cowherd people. Why did he protect them? Because they're my relatives. They depend on me. So I must protect them, even though he was only 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, whatever. They all had such attraction for Krishna that they took shelter of him completely. And not understanding that he was God, but simply because of the attractive nature of Krishna was the sweetness, the loving relationship. So Krishna responded to this. And what did he do? He had to show powers to protect them. And that is manifested by lifting up Govardhan hill. So this becomes a contradiction. Everyone has a sweet relationship with Krishna, and if they think he's God, then that will interrupt the relationship. It will weaken the relationship. Yet, Krishna had to lift up the hill for 7 days to protect everyone and manifest all his powers. But even if Krishna does manifest his powers, the affection of the people of Vrindavan does not decrease. Even if they see the powers, and even if they sometimes admit he is God. And then sometimes we see they say, Supreme Lord or whatever, like the gopis, they call Krishna by different names, like Madhusudana, Achyuta, etc. Temporary. Then forget it all. So even if they realize Krishna is God, then it's still not an obstacle, because they forget it. And then they realize him as their son or their lover, etc. So even if there are reasons for understanding that Krishna is Supreme Lord, that never obstructs their intense relationship with Krishna, seeing him as their son, their lover, their friend, etc. It doesn't interfere with it at all. And it simply gets covered up by their great emotion. That we see in the case of Yasoda, when Krishna swallowed the dirt, and then Mother Yasoda looked in his mouth and saw the whole universe. Then immediately, she didn't think, Krishna Supreme Lord, I have to, worship him. She forgot about the whole incident. And she thought that maybe something was wrong with her perception or whatever, or some demons are influencing us, etc. And therefore she called the Brahmanas to utter some mantras to protect Krishna. And that was a display of her love for Krishna. So she didn't think, Krishna's Supreme Lord, as Arjuna did. Or rather, she took precautions for Krishna, or tried to safeguard him from the demons. So that was a display of her affection for Krishna as her son. So, in this particular incident, though Krishna does show powers, they don't really regard that as a reason to think he is Supreme Lord. And their love continues as before. So, they have various ways of dealing with this incident. One is that actually Krishna didn't do it all alone, because the cowherd men were there and Balaram was there. So they all helped him, so therefore it became possible because they shared the burden. So that is often given by Yasoda and others when people speak to them. No, actually he didn't do it. Another way of justifying it is that actually Gargamuni had predicted that Krishna will protect you. And actually, he has given, the Supreme Lord is actually doing all this. Narayan is doing this on behalf of Krishna. So therefore, it's not actually Krishna doing it. Narayan is doing it all. And he's also helping Krishna and protecting Krishna. So help him protect the people of Vrindavan. So they don't attribute directly that Krishna is Supreme Lord, but the Supreme Lord is doing it on his behalf or whatever. So that's another way in which they justify all of this. And even if there is no justification at all, the main thing is that anyway, though Krishna may display powers and kill demons and whatnot, still, he cannot be the Supreme Lord. Why? Because he was born to Yashoda. God is not born. God's eternal. He's not a baby. He doesn't grow up. He has no changing form like Krishna does. So he's simply the son of Nanda and Yashoda. So how can he be God? So their affectionate relationship with Krishna as their child or their friend or the lover, etc., makes them forget all of these contrary instances where Krishna does show his powers. Nevertheless, Krishna shows these powers because Krishna, even though he has the form of a small boy in Vrindavan, is complete. And whatever powers are in devatas, whatever powers are in avatar forms, they're also there. And of course, more than that, of course, Krishna has sweetness. So, therefore, Krishna in Vrindavan is sweet, but he also has all powers. So sometimes he shows those powers, how great he is. So he shows powers which make him greater than any avatar. And that's why he showed this to Brahma through his expansions, that each expansion of the cows and the cowherd boys turned into Vishnu forms. And the Vishnu forms were the creators of universes. So in this way, Krishna showed that he is the origin of Mahavishnu, who is the origin of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who is in charge of each universe. So in Vrindavan itself, Krishna displayed that he is the supreme powerful person. Though, generally, the people of Vrindavan appreciate Krishna because of his sweetness. But he is both in Vrindavan itself. So, in killing the demons again, he shows powers. And here, very explicitly, by lifting up Govardhan hill for 7 days and nights, he shows powers. But the people of Vrindavan, seeing that, do not have any disturbance to their love. So this shows the strength of their love, just as Yashoda was not disturbed when Krishna showed the universal form. So the people of Vrindavan also, all together, found no disturbance to their affection, even though Krishna displayed all this power. And that is ultimately because the strength of their love did not allow that display of power to interfere with them at all. So in this way, they are considered to be the highest devotees of all. Because of that, because they are bound to Krishna by such strong love, Krishna is equally bound to them by equal love, or even more love. So he will do anything for the people of Vrindavan. So even if it means he has to display power, he will lift up Govardhan hill and do whatever to protect the people of Vrindavan. They have followed his order out of devotion, then he must protect them if there is some obstacle, because Indra is pouring down rain or whatever. So that's his action in response to the people's great devotion they show by giving up the sacrifice of Indra and following his instructions here to worship Govardhan and the Brahmanas and circumambulate the hill and feed the cows.
Was teaching them Confucian philosophy. Can you say that because as Vajravasis are diverted from Krishna, so by giving this Confucian philosophy, he's trying to bring them back towards him, doing their attention towards Krishna. Because if they worship Indra, they will be diverted from his attention. Can you say that?
Well, obviously, one of the whole point of the story is that one should not worship David as one should worship Supreme Lord. So, but why he has to use karma mimamsa philosophy to do that? He could just quote things like Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or even Upanishads, Mahanarayan Upanishad that says, Vishnu Supreme, and not Indra, not Shiva, not Brahma, etc. But instead he uses this rather indirect method of karma mimamsa, which also doesn't approve of Devata worship. But the problem is that this philosophy doesn't even accept Supreme Lord. It just says, don't worship anybody. Just do your activity. Just do your activity. Don't worship anyone. So that's a little bit, atheistic. They don't believe in a Supreme Lord.
When those who recognize Krishna as Supreme Lord, they are from Vaishya Goloka, and those who recognize Krishna Supreme, they are from the sweetest part of the world.
Well, they could be, or they could be from Mathura or Dwarka, because in Mathura and Dwarka they also appreciate Krishna. So Aishvarya Goloka is a place where Krishna still is a cowherd boy with greatness. So we don't have that manifested within the material world. But we do have Mathura and Dwarka, where Krishna's not a cowherd boy. He's in Mathura and Dwarka, but they see his greatness as well. So Aishvarya Goloka is like a compromise between the greatness and the cowherd boy form.
Maharaj, when we see Brahma Vimogana Leela, Brahma took away the paths so that they were separated from Brahma. But in this case, because of Indra's mistakes, they were able to unite with the Lord for 7 days and 7 nights. So in one case, it's just favorable action that they are able to be with the Lord for 7 days and 7 nights. How do you understand?
Well, this is one of the you can say the purposes is that without interruption, everyone could see Krishna for 7 days and nights, where previously they could not, because the cowherd boys associate with Krishna during the day, but not at the night. The gopis will see Krishna in the day but not in the night, and even then not all the time, because he goes to the forest and they're in the village. The elders don't see Krishna in the day, only in the morning and the evening, like this. So everybody sees Krishna a little bit, but not all the time. But then in this pastime, everyone sees Krishna continuously for day and night, 24 hours for 7 days. So this helps to satisfy their eyes and their senses, because they can perceive Krishna continuously. So little difference here. In the other pastime of Brahma Mohana Leela, then all of the parents got to associate with Krishna as their son. But it wasn't the form of Krishna, it was in the form of their son. But they got to have Vatsalya Rasa with Krishna directly, but in another form for 1 year. So a little bit different. But nevertheless, it was a cause of, association with Krishna and having Krishna as their son.
We see that tribals and primitive people, they worship nature, mountain, other things. But here in Krishna, we see Krishna asking to worship the mountain. The people we are okay, let us worship the nature.
Yeah. Well, we have everything. We have worship of animals also from avatar forms. Anything can be worshipped, an object or an animal or a human being form, but they should be authorized forms, that's all. So we have authorized forms of a lion form of Nrsimhadev or a pig form of Varaha, etc. Or we have here an object that is a mountain that's worshipped supreme. Of course, we got Shalagram Shila, which is like a rock, but it's worshipped also. So we have various authorized things in this world which are worshipped. And then we can worship trees also, like Tulsi Devi, and whatever like that. So we can worship various things as long as it's authorized and it's related somehow to scriptures and to Supreme Lord.
Maharaj, we know that the Karma Mimamsa philosophy is wrong. What is the actual philosophy of karma? What is the actual philosophy of karma?
Well, there's no particular philosophy of karma itself. We have Karma Mimamsa philosophy which arose, we can say, out of the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas for doing actions for going to Svarga Loka. So basically it's material and its goal. Karma itself is simply a law inbuilt into material nature, into the world. And it gives people results for their activities. That's all it does, without any need to philosophize or whatever. So, nevertheless, all the different philosophies will accept that law, whether it is karma, mimamsa, or Vedanta, or Nyaya, or Sankhya, or whatever. They all accept the law of karma. They all accept the soul and the body, and that duality of the body. And ultimately, that one has to, of course, many of them don't accept a Supreme Lord, but they accept a soul at least, and that the whole purpose is liberation from material body. So, and if we're not in liberation, then we're under the law of karma. So they all accept the law of karma, definitely, that it exists and that we go from body to body.